In this episode, I'm going to tell you the 5 biggest mistakes I've made on my layout. Hello, welcome back to Chapel Station. I thought I'd get a quick episode in just before Christmas because I was thinking about what I would have changed on my layout if I had to start again, in hindsight, which is a wonderful thing. But yeah, if I could turn back clock, what would I do differently? And there are a few key things that I would change. So I thought actually that would make quite a good video for someone who's thinking about doing a model railway or who might get a model railway for Christmas and is going to start setting up in the new year. So in this episode I'm going to go through the 5 biggest mistakes. I've made lots, but the 5 sort of key ones that actually are fundamental to my railway and how it operates, and actually in hindsight I would change. So let's get into it. So mistake number 1. In fact, before I start, someone did ask on the comments, what are these white things in my ears? Well, they are my AirPods. They're not hearing aids. I just found that the cheap mic I had just didn't work very well. So AirPods, obviously quite expensive, good lot of technology in them, and they seem to work well. So that's what I'm using as a microphone. Let me know in the comments if the sound is okay, or if I should maybe splash out on a more expensive dedicated proper mic. Anyway, mistake number 1 is definitely the baseboards themselves. If you think about baseboards for a model railway, they're like the foundations to a building. That's sort of key really. It doesn't matter how good your modelling is afterwards, how well you lay your track down. If your baseboards aren't good, then everything built on top of them won't be good, and you'll just have ongoing issues, which I do a little bit. I think getting the baseboards right, building them properly, installing them correctly, making sure they're level, which is a thing I'll come on to later, is definitely key. I think for me, in hindsight, I was, if you watch some of my early videos, I was only planning on building the chapel shunting area, which is behind me here. So it's literally going to be that bit. So I had a bit of old plywood, put them in there and put the track down. Of course, very quickly I realised that I wanted a bigger layout, and this happens to a lot of people. So I started extending it. The trouble is that you're screwing bits of wood onto other bits of wood, and you're trying to make it fit. Then there are joins, and you just seem to get all sorts of issues. You've got to put brackets in. It's hard to get to. Then when you lay the track, it's probably over a joint or a bracket. So I would say definitely planning your baseboards. Spend as much time on planning your baseboards, the size of them, whether you're going to build them yourselves, if you've got the woodworking skills, or whether you can actually buy pre-made baseboards. But I think that is definitely key to a good layout. So yes, track planning is my next big error. I had spent a bit of time thinking about the track plan, but like I say, I thought it was mainly going to be about shunting. So I did the track plan for the shunting layout just here. Then when I decided I was going to do a shelf layout and extend it, I thought I'll have it right towards the back because I only want a narrow shelf. So my first error with my track plan is both my tracks are quite at the back. There's not much room to put anything behind them at all. Equally, I can't even fit a station platform in on this station here. So another error, and probably my biggest error with my track plan, is I stayed with set track Hornby, because that's what I knew, that's what I had as a child, so I thought perfect. Which that limited me quite significantly, because that means all my curves are first and second radius curves right in the corner, just to try and keep the railway right out. But of course, that does limit what trains you can run. So certainly I hadn't really planned the extension of my track, and then when I did, I didn't revisit the layout. Was probably my biggest mistake about that, is when I then decided, right, I'm going to do a roundy. I should have really gone back to the drawing board as opposed to just extending and adding on to, and then having to now live with those errors. So track plan is so important, and probably, moving away from the set track. The points on Hornby set track are quite sharp as well. I hadn't used flexi track at all, so again, the lines are very straight. So there's no, I like it when you see a nice sweeping curve of a locomotive come through, whereas mine are all dead straight. So in hindsight, I definitely would change the track plan and plan it more for the ultimate layout. The other thing to mention on track planning is actually having some fiddle yard. I didn't really even understand what a fiddle yard was until I started really building my model railway. In effect, this has now become my fiddle yard, because the trouble is, if you haven't got anywhere to store your trains, then you've got to keep taking them on and off the track, and that's a bit of a pain. We all know how hard it is to couple and to get the wheels on the track, so you end up not bothering because it's easiest to run the same old train set around. So yeah, having more storage where you can just easily run a loco down, pick them up and move them off, adds playability as well. So I'd say, you know, on your track plan, feature in a siding of some sort, whether you want it to be a fiddle yard or just a big siding. The more storage you can have on your layout, the better. My next biggest mistake is the incline. Because I had to put an incline in to get between the baseboard chapel and the baseboard under the window, I had to put this incline, which is at about 4%, and that just about gives me sort of about 10 centimetre clearance, so I can get the track and my actual underground piece underneath, which was a fortuitous mistake, but it does mean I've got to deal, all my trains got to deal with this incline. And the truth is, some of them do really struggle, particularly if they've got a long rake of coaches or wagons behind them, particularly Hornby ones actually that are lighter. And if I spin you around, you'll see where my bridge is over, there's another incline. It actually slopes, so that incline's only at about 2%, so that isn't too bad. But again, all the coaches and that are coming off of a first or second radius curve and then hitting an incline, which is a big ask for the locos. I know a lot of people do have inclines, but particularly as my incline is the main running line, I don't have a flat part of the track. You know, these two are the two main lines that go around, and I have a, like I just said, a 4% incline here and about a 2% incline up there, coming off of first and second radius curves. And in hindsight, that was a really big mistake. Again, when I decided that I was going to extend my railroad to this side, what I should have done was really raise that side. So I was starting with a nice level track plan to start with. And then if I wanted to put an incline in to go to an upper line, then it isn't as fundamental. The trouble is with my inclines is they are the two main running lines. So if a train can't make it up, then I can't use it. Or if it can only go down the 4% incline, not up the 4% incline, I then have to sort of run them the wrong way round, for want of a better word. Most of the freight trains prefer to go down the incline than up the incline, and they prefer the second radius curve, so I then have to almost go the opposite way you'd normally go on a standard railway, which is obviously the outer line running that way. So yeah, inclines, I'd be very cautious about inclines. Didn't probably appreciate how difficult a train finds it to get up an incline, particularly the cheaper ones, the Hornby ones, to be honest. The railroad range, nice locos, good value for money, but they're not really good at not a lot of weight on them, so they're not good at hauling up the inclines. So definitely, it's a no-no for the inclines. So the fourth one is the track you use. Again, I've just mentioned this, sort of going out of sequence a little bit, so apologies for that, and I don't want to go over the same old thing, but selecting your track. As you can see here, my track is all set track Hornby. You know, it's fine, and actually the Hornby locos run very well on this set track, ironically, apart from the inclines I've just talked about. But the Backmans, these two here for instance, lovely locos, they'll go up the incline really easy, a lot of weight of them, they're fine, but they hate going across these narrow points. And they don't even really like the second radius curves that much either. So yeah, I would certainly, I think that Hornby's fine for a train set to model a lovely railway. It's probably better to maybe go for Pico, where you can get more realism, and I know they now do Pico 75, 80s of different rail heights, and again, all my track is isolation, isofrog, should I say, points. And that sort of leads me nicely onto my last and fifth and final and probably biggest error, which is DC or DCC. When I set up the track, I went with DC. Like a lot of people, apologies, like a lot of people. That's what I knew as a child. I had some old DC locomotives that I still got, and I wanted to be able to run them, you know, bring back some childhood memories. So I invested in this lovely Morley vector controller and went on with the DC. other than the controller. It's quite cheap, easy setup. So I went ahead and did my DC layout with my ISOFrog standard set track, and happy days. Then about 6 months later, I went to a model railway show and saw DCC in action, particularly the sound, the sort of more realistic control that it gives you with the locos, with the slowing down and the acceleration, the lighting, the fact that you can obviously run more than one locomotive on a piece of track, and loved it. I fell in love with it and started buying DCC locomotives and trains, and got a little startup set which I'm still using with that EZ Bachmann EZ command, and yeah, started really experimenting with DCC. Of course, the problem is my whole layout is built for DC. I'll just swing you around again back to the points, and yeah, so all my points are ISOFrog points. I only had a single set of droppers onto the track, so that's sort of caused me some issues. The DCC does run pretty much okay on the layout. Some of the Bachmanns don't like it if there's no power to the line, and then I just switch a point across, obviously then feeding power to it. They then their horn just goes on permanently. I have no idea why that is, and if anyone that's listening and watching knows, please comment in the comments on, because yeah, I don't know. If I turn it on from fresh with power and energize it, it seems to be happy, but maybe it's a surge, I don't know. But certainly if I just flick the point across, then they really get unhappy. I am toying with getting the Hornby clips to put in, which I know you can get that make each section live. I was initially thinking it was quite nice to have some dead sections because the locos aren't sitting there charged up all the time, but now I'm thinking no, just try and make it live. I've had to retrospectively put in, and you'll have seen that in some previous episodes if you've watched them, a bus wire going round and wire that in, which again is just, it's not impossible, but it's quite difficult when you've already put all your track down and ballasted about half of it. So yeah, that's sort of been an issue. And now, of course, I've got the DC locos that I've bought, some newer ones, some that I can put a chip in, so I will be able to use on DCC. But I've got some locos that's some second-hand ones that I bought that you can't, or you'd have to hardwire. So again, in hindsight, I think it would have been better to start it off with DCC, with a proper track plan, with some better track, and I think my layout would have been better for it. So hopefully I haven't talked too much about all my woes. It sounds terrible, but I suppose the good thing about model railways is you can always adapt and get workarounds. So it isn't as bad as it sounds. I still have a lovely layout. I enjoy running my trains. There's just some limitations that I probably wouldn't have had to have if I'd have planned it better. So don't worry if you've already done some of my mistakes. Like I say, there are certainly ways around it. But if you're planning your railway, your model railway, then yeah, take some time. It's quite exciting to rush in and get a board up, get the track down, get the trains running. We've all done it, and it's really exciting to do. But certainly take some time to think about how you're going to use your railway, and how you're going to lay it out, because I think that if you can get that right from the get-go, then the rest will be much easier, and you're not then trying to make compromises and adapt and add and cut pieces of wood and glue them on and etc. So yeah, hopefully you found that useful. Hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. I'm jumping on the ferry back to the UK to see family tomorrow, so I won't be getting any videos out for the next week or two. But hopefully in the next video I might have lots of new presents for the model railway. Who knows? Fingers crossed, Santa. So yeah, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas to you and your family. Hopefully you'll also get some bits for your layout and enjoy some time modelling. So have a brilliant Christmas and New Year, and I'll speak to you again in 2024. Thanks.